Okay, welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video. I'm back from my UK trip. I had a really good time, and it's funny, the timing on this. I actually, during my trip, had a really nice dinner with Alan Stewart, Mamemeister. Had a good old time, got together with him in Edinburgh, and ironically, just the last day or so, Alan posted a question that I thought, ooh, this is a really good thing. He's gone on about, like, we used to do questions to the community, top 5 this, or what do you think of that? And that's kind of gone away. And I thought, yeah, it's true. Like, you just don't see people doing community questions anymore. But he's posed one just the other day, and I thought, yes, I want to do an answer to a community question. I want to give Alan some kudos for trying to get the ball rolling again. And it's a very interesting question, so here's my answer. His question is, generally, has the internet, the online, the social media, the world we're in today, been overall a positive or a negative for gaming? And he kind of spun that into how, when he was a kid, the excitement of seeing maybe pictures of an upcoming game in a magazine, and then you go to W.H. Smith and you get the tape and you try it out. You are taking a gamble. You don't know if this game is any good. And nowadays, you can see somebody almost play an entire game on YouTube before you even pick it up. Or you can see a million reviews. So, in Alan's case, he was kind of aiming for, he misses the novelty and the excitement of, I don't know what this game is going to be like. And now we're kind of flooded with all this information. Now we know maybe too much about games or hardware or what have you. So for him, you know, that was what kind of got him thinking. Is it a positive or is it a negative? Now, I'm going to go, I agree with what he's saying, but I got a few examples of things that, for me, overall, I'm going to say that the evolution of having everything available to us online all the time, especially in the gaming sphere, has been a positive, though there are some negatives associated with it. For example, as a guy who grew up on Atari, I am big on what it was like in the very early days, the golden era of the arcade, going in and playing something in a video game, bunch of cabinets all lined up in a shopping mall or whatever, or a beachside resort or what have you. You know, going and playing games that way. And playing Atari when I got home. For me, come the mid to late 80s, and the current sort of generation of pundits that talk about video games now online, the rise of Nintendo as being the savior of the video game space, which I'm not arguing, I would say that is true, does lead to a heck of a lot of waxing nostalgic about how awesome Nintendo was, and aren't they even great today, and that's fantastic, and that's really cool. I don't care about Nintendo, and in some ways I've actually had a problem with the company's approach to video games in general. I'll probably save that for a video someday, but I'm not thrilled anytime I'm listening to a video game podcast or watching somebody on YouTube and they start gushing about, oh, it was so much better in the days of the NES. You know, that's when video games really started. I was like, no, they were around before that. I don't like that comment that happens a lot. But what I find is a positive about the internet interspersal social media YouTube connection thing is that I have so many options now ahead of me. If I want to look up something or remember the glory days of, like, the arcades, I have got so many YouTube channels that are video game related. I can pick and choose, and I can actually kind of filter out the Nintendo love. You know, a few years ago, or maybe in the early internet days, all people would say is that Nintendo was what started video games for them. And that's great. I applaud you for that. I'm glad you're enjoying your nostalgia. My generation, we're older than you, and we had a different bunch of titles and companies that were the big beloved, or the form of, like, the hardware wars, the console wars. So what is a positive to me about the internet being around now for video game space is that there's such a smorgasbord of video game content. I can actually almost tick a box and say, yes, no Nintendo please, and reduce down what I'm looking at, and I like that. I am so glad that I can do a deep dive into Atari stuff and Vectrex stuff and what have you, and I don't have to listen to how great Mario or Zelda or any of that other stuff is. I like that. I am pleased that there is so much of it that I can actually pick and choose and not have that noise that I've been so used to for so long constantly pushing into the conversation. I'm very glad that I can now not have to listen to the stuff that I had to listen to 10, 20 years ago. So that's something I like about, I count that as a positive for the video game, the impact that the internet has had on the video game world. Now, the other one that is sort of, it's a negative but it's got a positive silver lining, is in the olden days I might have bought a game because I liked the look of it or because it got good reviews and not be aware of what was happening behind the scenes. And now I find it very difficult to enjoy something that those days are kind of gone for me. Now a game will be released or is being announced and a big chunk of people will be pointing out, you know, the makers of that game are guilty of a lot of very bad things, and I can't quite bring myself to separate the politics from the game release. I'll give an example. I was kind of looking forward to Assassin's Creed Mirage when that came out 6 months ago or so, because I was a huge Assassin's Creed fan years ago. I went to Boston, I recreated that. I went to London, I recreated scenes of climbing around in a top hat like I was in Assassin's Creed. I loved the Assassin's Creed game past tense. And then they went into a direction I didn't really like with the Egyptian stuff and the Greek stuff, where it was like this big combat game. It had lost the element that made it Assassin's Creed for me. And then Assassin's Creed Mirage was announced. So I'm like, oh, we're back to classic Assassin's Creed, back to the white hoods and the sneaking and the, yeah, okay, I'm on board again. I never picked it up, and the reason why is I do get a lot of information from a lot of sources online, YouTube, internet websites, etc., forums, talking about how Ubisoft has been proven as quite guilty of a lot of nasty sexual harassment stuff in their corporate environment. And to buy their games is to kind of turn a blind eye to that. And I thought, you know, I hate that that's true, but that's true. I can't in true conscience play that game. And so that's a negative. You know, here's some fun I was going to have. But now the positive is I'm a little more educated on the bad stuff going on behind the scenes. Shouldn't really support that. Not going to buy it. And if nothing else, at least I'm empowered to make that choice. A similar one a year ago or so, when Hogwarts Legacy was announced, I was quite moved by various YouTubers, Blunty being a really good example. He laid it out. He's like, look, you know, J.K. Rowling has been guilty of a lot of very nasty comments against the transgender community. Buying this game lines her pockets and sort of says it's okay what she was talking about. And you can argue that point all you want. I'm not going to get into that. But it made me think, oh, luckily I'm not a big Harry Potter fan, so I don't care. It's not like I've got a dog in the race. Fine, I'll just bypass that. I don't need to play a game that badly. Even though it's very good. I've heard good things. I have friends and family who play it and they enjoy it. So it's like, hey, you go ahead and you make that choice. That's fantastic for you. But for me, knowing the stuff going on behind it is distasteful, and I don't feel like I can give money to that game. The people who developed it won't make any money off me, and that's unfortunate for them. They're the ones making the game. They're the ones in the business. And there's arguments both ways about, well, she got paid a certain cut and she's not making any more money off it, so you're not really hurting her. And there's other arguments that like, yeah, no, the developers got paid what they want. She gets all the extra royalties. You know what? Let's just stop there. I'm going to say a positive, but a negative, of the gaming space these days is when something comes along that catches your eye, and it's very easy to get notified about these really cool games. I discovered some great stuff because randomly I was recommended it on YouTube or something. But then when you do a little bit of research into it, you can find out a lot behind it, and then you can make a more educated decision. Do you want to support that person, that developer, that what have you? There are many things that are being state-sponsored in some parts of the world that are not state sponsorships I want to support. So I don't like getting political, but for me, it's a good thing that you can educate yourself on your purchases now, where you couldn't back in the day. You used to be able to buy games like there's some really awful games that came up for the Atari 2600 that I might have bought on a laugh, on a whim, thinking, oh yeah, that's funny. And then it's actually awful and you shouldn't be buying that stuff. You know what I mean? So, anyway, those are examples of why I think overall the internet impact on video games has been generally positive. Yes, there's a lot of negatives. I just outlined a few, but for me they are positives, and I thought I would give my video response. So Alan, thank you very much for doing this. I hope more people are doing this. I hope this is going to get that ball rolling again, and we'll see what happens. Anyway, until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.